joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Caitlin Burke. The Islamic State is praising the man who carried out the deadliest terrorist shooting on American soil. ISIS says Omar Mateen is, quote, one of the soldiers of the caliphate in America. Mateen shot and killed at least 50 people this weekend at a gay nightclub, claiming he did it for ISIS. Abigail Robertson is in Orlando with more on the attack.
Startling details continue to emerge as authorities investigate what motivated 29-year-old Omar Mateen to commit the deadliest shooting in American history.
This is an open investigation. We've reached no definitive judgment on the precise motivations of the killer. The FBI is appropriately investigating this as an act of terrorism.
Mateen's ex-wife describes him as abusive and bipolar and says she has had no contact with him for 7 years.
In the beginning, he was a normal being that cared about family, loved to joke, loved to have fun. But then a few months after we were married, I saw his instability and I saw that he was bipolar and he would get mad out of nowhere.
Mateen worked as a security guard at G4S, which describes itself as the leading U.S. security company. He legally purchased at least 2 firearms within the last week or so.
But it was at the moments when you would see his emotional instability and turning totally different.
The executive director of the Council on American Islamic Relations says Mateen does not represent the Muslim community in any way.
This is a hate crime, plain and simple. We condemn it in the strongest possible terms. It violates our principles as Americans and as Muslims. Let me be clear. We have no tolerance for extremism of any kind.
The FBI interviewed Mateen twice because of his ties with known terrorists, but didn't find him to be a threat. This American citizen, who pledged allegiance to ISIS, held clubgoers hostage for 3 hours until SWAT teams stormed the establishment. Up to 150,000 members of the LGBT community were said to be in Orlando in June for Gay Pride Month, one of the largest pride events in the world. The city had recently wrapped up celebrations when terror struck the community here at Pulse nightclub. Around 300 patrons packed the club Saturday night, with almost a third falling victim to Mateen's bullets. Eyewitnesses recounted the terrifying scene.
And all of a sudden we heard like a boom, boom, and we thought it was like the stereo. We were like, oh my goodness, something went on with the, just the music. And after the second shot, there was a pause, and then it just started shooting. And that's when we knew something was wrong, when everybody just dropped to the ground, and then people started running.
Churches around Orlando are opening their doors for special services and vigils throughout the week, and worship bands like this one are heading to memorials near the scene to comfort and support the gathered mourners. Reporting from Orlando, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
For more about the shooter's motives, we spoke with Ryan Morrow, national security analyst with the Clarion Project. He told CBN News the shooter did not just link his attack to ISIS, but he also wanted to earn praise from the broader Islamic world.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of glory when it comes to attacking gay people, even beyond ISIS in the Islamic world. And so if you're a jihadist and you're someone that wants to die carrying out your attack, and you want it to bring as much glory as possible to you, it's not just about dying, it's about picking the right target. And by targeting gay people, he has not just ISIS celebrating him, he will have groups that don't even like ISIS that are celebrating him and supporting him because of who he targeted.
The shooter's father says his son became angry a couple of months ago when he saw 2 gay men kissing, and that the incident may be related to the shooting. Meanwhile, the attack in Orlando shows once again how the Islamic State has brought the fight to the U.S. homeland. Dale Hurd has the story.
The Orlando attack showed again that ISIS is here, in America. Although the way President Obama talked Sunday in his response to the attack, the message may not have reached the Oval Office.
We've reached no definitive judgment on the precise motivations of the killer. The FBI is appropriately investigating this as an act of terrorism.
But what kind of terrorism? President Obama did not use the words Muslim or Islamic terrorism, even though the killer shouted Allahu Akbar and called 911 to say he was with the Islamic State. And Islamic State Radio called the shooter Omar Mateen one of the soldiers of the caliphate in America. Republican Senator Jeff Sessions warns there will be more attacks, in part because of the president's reluctance to call Orlando what it is.
And it's not stopping, as we see apparently today. More of these attacks are coming. It's a real part of the threat that we face. And if we can't address it openly and directly, and say directly that there is an extremist element within Islam that's dangerous to the world and has to be confronted, we need to slow down and be careful about those we admit into the country.
FBI Director James Comey says ISIS has created a terrorist diaspora that flows out of Syria and Iraq to the west, hardened fighters looking to kill people. The Wall Street Journal pleaded, "Can we finally drop the illusion that the jihadist fires that burn in the Middle East don't pose an urgent and deadly threat to the American homeland?" And National Review said, "The Islamic terrorist war on us has returned to American shores, and it will continue here as long as we refuse to exercise the tactics necessary to stamp it out." Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Donald Trump tweeted this weekend that he's been right about radical Islamic terrorism. He also said, quote, "We can't afford to be politically correct anymore." Before the attack, CBN News had spoken with Trump at the Faith and Freedom Road to Majority conference in Washington. Trump told CBN's David Brody that toning down his style and rhetoric wouldn't make him the authentic candidate that he is. He spoke to the crowd about the importance of being pro-life and for traditional marriage. Backstage, Brody asked him about another issue that's been tough for him.
Word on the street among evangelicals is they want you to tone down the rhetoric. They want you, forget that everybody talks about more presidential, forget about that. But they want you from that moral perspective to kind of tone it down. And how do you feel about that?
Well, you have to be who you are. And I mean, I've gotten the largest number of votes in the history of Republican politics by far. And so I want to keep doing what we're doing. But if you ask me to tone it down, I'll tone it.
Trump was also asked whether he believes America is a Judeo-Christian nation. He responded, "That's the way it is." You can watch the interview by going to cbnnews.com and clicking on the Brody file. 4,000 more people have fled the Islamic-held city of Fallujah in Iraq. Government forces retook a key road to the Islamic State stronghold over the weekend. The Norwegian Refugee Council, a group that works with refugees, says more than 27,000 people have fled Fallujah. Aid groups estimate that 50,000 more civilians remain trapped in the city, which has been under the control of ISIS for more than 2 years. Fallujah is the last major city in western Iraq still held by the extremist group. Some refugees report ISIS militants are demanding payments up $130 per person for them to leave. Christina Grimmie, the 22-year-old finalist on The Voice, known for her Christian faith, was shot and killed in a separate incident this weekend in Orlando. Police say Grimmie was signing autographs after her performance Friday when a gunman opened fire.
Almost immediately, her brother Marcus Grimmie tackled the suspect to the ground. Shortly after that, the suspect killed himself.
Grimmie's publicist released a statement about her death, saying Christina has passed away and went home to be with the Lord. Coming up, God is moving in the Muslim world. Hear why so many are coming to faith in Christ. Muslims around the world began their holy month of Ramadan last week. It's an intense time of prayer and fasting lasting about 30 days. Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars of Islam that all Muslims are expected to fulfill. It's also a time when Christians can pray for the Islamic world, asking God to reveal the truth of Jesus Christ to Muslims.
This is a moment to be praying for them, that God would begin to open their eyes, that as they're praying for favor from God, that God, the God of the Bible, would in fact give it, but revealing to Muslims the gospel of Jesus Christ. I think in many ways the violence that we're seeing on the ground in the Middle East is the physical manifestation of the spiritual battle for souls in the Muslim world. So this is a tremendously important month to be praying for and engaged in ministry to the Muslim world.
The 30 Days of Prayer for the Muslim World webpage lists resources on Islam and how to pray for Muslims, as well as testimonies about the power of prayer to change lives in the Middle East. CBN's George Thomas recently spoke in depth with Joel Rosenberg about an unprecedented move of God in the Muslim world and why it's happening.
Great to have you on the broadcast. Listen, on your blog, joelrosenberg.com, you referenced that study that shows more Muslims came to Christ between 1960 and 2010 than in any time in history. Tell us why.
Well, it's fascinating, right? We've gone from about fewer than 200,000 Muslim converts to Christianity in 1960 to better than 10 million by 2010. And of course, that was 6 years ago. We believe the trend lines are continuing. Look, a lot has happened in the last 50 years in the Middle East. A lot of revolutions, wars, turmoil, poverty. And I think what's happening, especially in the last 10 or 15 years, is many Muslims are getting deeply uncomfortable with the idea that ISIS or Iran's leadership or Assad are the type of people that represent Islam. And many Muslims are saying, look, if that's Islam, if that's real Islam, I'm out. I'm not comfortable with that. And they're beginning to search. There's so much sadness, so much pain and hardship that they are beginning to question whether the system they've always known and believed to be true really is.
And do you speak to that a little bit more? Is there this sense of disillusionment within Islam?
Tremendous, yes. And in fact, all throughout the Islamic world for the last several decades, Muslim scholars, people who have not yet converted to Christianity, they're asking what went wrong. The Islamic world was once the pinnacle of military might, of science and technology and culture and art and architecture. And yet now you don't see Nobel Prize winners, Pulitzer Prize winners. You don't see high-tech discoveries. And right, you've got oil and you've got war and you've got poverty and you've got illiteracy. And Muslims are asking, what happened to us? If God is with us, then why are we struggling? And there are different reactions. Some Muslims are saying God is not with us and we need to become more radicalized and become violent. And commit jihad, holy war, as it were. But others are saying, no, maybe we're wrong. And they're beginning to search satellite television, the internet, radio, and other believers that they're just meeting on the ground, as it were, as well as dreams and visions of Christ. God is using many ways to get the gospel message to Islam over the heads of the clerics and the governments, right at a moment when Muslims are going through this tremendous upheaval and soul searching.
Would you also say that, there's also more ministry to the Muslim world than ever before?
I believe so, although I believe a lot of that has accelerated post 9/11. In other words, when radical Islam hit the United States, there was a reaction. Obviously, we went to war, and there was other reactions, and many Americans and Christians generally began to get very angry at Islam, but others began to say, listen, what is motivating them to hate us so much? Maybe we've neglected, as the church broadly speaking, and the American church in particular, maybe we've neglected bringing them the good news, that there is hope, that there is salvation, that one doesn't have to kill oneself. There's somebody that's already died for us to forgive us our sins. And so I think there has been an acceleration of missions work in the Muslim world, right at the moment, again, combined with technology, which has allowed fewer people to be able to reach more people with the gospel. I don't think enough people are engaged in Muslim evangelism. I think that's actually still a weakness. But I also believe that God is moving very powerfully, using dreams and visions Muslims are having of the man in white, of Jesus Christ himself. And they are beginning to seek, even when the church is not always willing to preach. And so there's all these things are converging at a moment where I think this is the greatest moment of spiritual openness among Muslims. The data now is starting to come in showing that this what we've all sensed to be true, this tremendous surge of Muslims turning to Christ. But again, remember, 10 million converts, let's say it's twice that, 20 million. In a world of 1.6 billion Muslims, we got a long way to go.
Yeah.
So if we're going to fulfill the Great Commission and reach every nation with the gospel, make disciples of every nation, we're going to have to really pick up our game and be much more faithful at preaching and strengthening pastors and ministry leaders in the region so that they can reach their people with the gospel.
Joel also spoke about the intense persecution of Christians in the Muslim world and how it's actually strengthening the church. Log on to cbnnews.com to hear those inspiring insights. Up next, a former rock star is organizing massive Christian concerts in communist China. See how a new wave of Christian music is sweeping this atheist nation next. A growing number of Chinese Christians are using music to reach their culture with the gospel. It's a great strategy because a staggering 977 million Chinese say they enjoy music on a regular basis. George Thomas has the story from Beijing.
Xu Qi was a rock singer for 20 years. He performed in nightclubs and other venues around China. But the fame and wealth, he says, did nothing to quench the emptiness he felt inside.
It took me some time to admit it, but the pleasure was temporary. It did not reach down into my soul.
Xu told us how that all changed in a single moment and transformed his singing career.
I was reading the Bible and God spoke to me through the verse in Jeremiah 1 verses 7-8, which says, "Do not say I'm too young. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I'm with you to deliver you."
That scripture was like a revelation. Xu says he knew then that the Lord was calling him to do something new with his voice.
I realized that my past 20 years as a rock singer wasn't a waste, and that God was preparing me to use music to share His love.
So instead of playing in nightclubs, he started organizing Christian concerts around the country, something that had never been done before publicly and on such a large scale.
When I stepped out of the entertainment business and committed myself to the church and to using music to draw people to Christ, my life status and values changed completely.
And the Lord rewarded his obedience.
I've been in full-time music ministry for almost 3 years now. During these 3 years, around 2 million people have come forward to accept Christ at my concerts. Yes, 2 million people.
China loves music. In a first-of-its-kind survey released earlier this year, a staggering 977 million people, that's about 75% of China's 1.3 billion population, listen to music regularly. Xu admits that what he and other Christian musicians are doing to share the gospel in China is huge. This is, after all, an officially atheist country where the government often frowns on Christianity. And while the Christian music industry here pales in comparison to the US, Xu believes they are making inroads.
China has seen an explosion of singing competitions in recent years. Christians, by the way, have played a prominent role in several of the national competitions.
Among them, Li Wenqi, a finalist in China's televised version of the voice singing competition. As an 18-year-old, she says she understands the pressure many of her peers face in the frantic chase for wealth.
Many people today in China believe making money should be their lifelong goal, so they sacrifice everything to chase that dream. But that is fruitless. I try to use my music to encourage people to chase after God instead.
Li's father is also her business manager.
"'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus."
He says it's truly remarkable that in China today, his daughter can go on national television and openly sing about Jesus Christ.
This would have been unheard of 30 years ago, but now we can sing worship songs freely. I know God will continue to make his voice heard around the nations.
Joseph Chui pastors a local church in Beijing. He says professional artists like Li and Xu are introducing his countrymen to a genre of music that is creative, inspiring, and getting people's attention.
Christian music is also influencing other religions. If you pay attention to Buddhist music, you find them to be very dull and boring. But nowadays, their songs also become quite cheerful. They adopted the power from Christian music to compose new Buddhist songs. So I think it also shows that Christian music has a wide impact.
This is music to Xu's ears. So in between writing new songs and holding Christian concerts, he spends his time trying to get other artists to step out and share the love of Christ.
I believe there are a large number of musicians who are afraid, for whatever reason, to openly sing about Christ.
流星划过，那是苍天之泪，时空在穿梭，在那美丽彩虹之巅。
I'm praying that more people will be bold so more people can hear about his love.
George Thomas, CBN News, Beijing, China.
It's amazing what can happen when people answer the call of God in their life. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Mel Gibson is working on a follow-up to The Passion of the Christ, the international box office success that gave millions a glimpse into Jesus' brutal crucifixion and burial. Now, The Hollywood Reporter says Gibson is working on a sequel to tell the story of Christ's resurrection. He's teaming up with writer Randall Wallace, who recently directed and co-wrote Heaven is for Real. Wallace and Gibson say the demand among evangelicals drove their decision to create a sequel. They're still in the early stages, and there has been no word about which studio will release the film. That's it for now on CBN NewsWatch. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care about most at cbnnews.com. And tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. We hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.